Everybody's had a mess. Some of them have turned their mess into their message, but everybody has issues, man. And nobody, not one of them, has it 100% figured out.
Hey, got something really cool I wanted to run by and let you know what's going on. So I'm starting a group that will start taking a deep dive into each one of these episodes. So we'll collectively come together and talk about the shows, talk about the guests. I'll be bringing back some of the guests to do some Q&A sessions and really take a further dive into their story, their journey, the episode, talk about, maybe some of the things you wish I would have asked on the episodes, do some Q&A sessions and the like. As a friend put it to me, it's really like a book club, but for the podcast. So a couple times a week, we'll go in, we'll break down the favorite shows of the week, and have cool discussions around everything that we've heard, we've learned, and want to know about their journey. Some of these guests will come in and they'll teach part of, what makes them awesome at what they do. And then, as always, I'll be providing regular value and content in this group. It's really cool because this only is going to cost $5 a month to join this group. And you'll be able to come in, interact with everybody else in there. So I'll put a link right in the show notes for this that you can jump in, come have a conversation with us, and we will really deep dive into each one of these episodes and help us all rise up together. Thanks for tuning in, guys. It's going to be a great show today. Having the show wasn't something I started out to do. But the day I found out somebody wanted to really sponsor the show was a really, really cool experience. So, guys, I want you to take some time to go check out Point Blank Safety Services and their new nonprofit, Blue Family Fund. These guys are doing some really, really cool things. And Stacey McGovern, who's the CEO over there, has been a dear friend, and she was a guest on the show. But these guys are literally taking, the off-duty officers and putting them out in security guard role. And here's what's cool about it is, as they're protecting our lives, they don't make a whole lot of money in that regard. No first responders are paid for the value they provide for our safety and our health and taking care of us. So these guys, Stacy and her team over at Point Blank Safety Services have really found a cool way to give back to these officers by helping them provide an additional income so they can continue to support and protect us. So do me a favor, guys. Seriously, go check out pointblanksafety.com and then go look at their nonprofit, which is Blue Family Fund. Now, this nonprofit was created because of the success of Point Blank Safety Services. They wanted to give back to the families of fallen officers and be able to give scholarships away to the families of current, police officers. So do me a favor. It would mean the world to me if you would go out and help support this show by supporting Point Blank Safety Services and their nonprofit Blue Family Fund. Just tell them Donnie has sent you. You heard it on Donnie Success Champions, and Stacy will take a tremendous and amazing care of you. Thanks, guys. All right, guys, so this is going to be a fun episode. I'm bringing on my buddy Wally Carmichael, man. He runs a phenomenal podcast and show called Men of Abundance. We're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about his journey. Just a great, fun episode. Two guys kind of hanging out, so this is a fun one. Enjoy this episode. All right, guys, it's going to be a fun episode, man. I love it when you bring other guys that are kind of in the same game and they just know how to carry on a conversation. So I'm bringing Wally Carmichael in to really tell his story. And I forewarned him I'm probably going to be an extra smart ass on him just because, he can suck it up and take it. I mean, he can take it. So Wally, welcome to the show, my friend. Thanks for getting on here, man. Walk us through. Tell us your story.
Hey, brother. Hey, first off, I'm super excited to be here, man. It's been a long time coming. I dig what you got going on, fellow veteran on top of that. So different services, but we're all brothers, man. Brothers.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I won't hold not being a Marine against you too much, but.
Well, same goes here. Funny story about that actually is years and years ago when I was in high school, I really never considered joining the military, but my cousin was a Marine. And I thought, man, if I ever did, I would join the Marines because they got the best damn looking uniform going, period. It wasn't even a question. So when my uncle was a first sergeant, came home on leave one time, and I had literally just dropped out of college. I ran out of money. And he said, look, join the military. You'll get some education along the way. You'll travel the world, blah, blah, blah. And he was in the Army, first sergeant at the time. And I said, not no, but hell no, not my thing. Well, a couple of weeks later, I got tired of working 2 jobs trying to get back into college, raise money to get back into college. So I walked into the recruit. Well, I decided I wanted to be a medic, and I wanted to be a medic for the Marines. But then I realized Marines don't have medics.
We don't have medics.
They're Navy corpsmen. And I'm not going to get stuck wearing that Cracker Jack box suit, man. That just wasn't happening. So it was all about looking good, right?
Right, absolutely.
That was my mentality back then. So I ended up joining the Army as a medic and did 25 years playing around with those guys.
Wow, you just couldn't figure out what the hell you wanted to be when you grow up, so you decided to stay there forever.
Yeah, throughout the course of the whole thing, I was that guy that was chasing that. Much of my story of where I got this, started the whole Men of Abundance podcast and this whole abundance journey is I was that guy chasing the 6 and 7 figure income. I mean, I would literally be deployed in, let's say I was in Albania. I've been in 23 countries on 5 continents. And I'd be in Albania, for instance, drawing circles because I was in Amway trying to make $1 million, or I was doing something, always doing something. Even in Iraq, I started a really cool business with the satellite systems and everything. And, I enjoyed being a medic the whole time. I truly enjoyed doing that. And, I got my second wind about halfway through, but I was always that guy trying to start some sort of, I paid a guy $5,000 to mentor me for a year to teach me how to do lease options. And that was amazing because that guy was literally there on the phone when I called him at a deal. And I'm standing outside and I was like, hey, here's the deal. Here's the numbers. He was, all right, here's the contract you want to use. Go back in there, tell him this, this, and this. Boom. I made my money back in my investment back in the first deal and a half. And then it was just gravy after that. And then, it just kept on going. And then here I was I think it was about 24 years in. And I'm sitting on the beach. I was actually retired at this point in time. I was retired. And I'm sitting on the beach in Hawaii in front of my house at the gazebo. My youngest is playing in the water. My oldest is already gone. My middle boy and my wife are sitting in the house. And I'm listening to a podcast on my little headset here, and I got my coffee there and I'm watching my kid. And he's out there in the water saying, Dad, come play, Dad, come play. And I'm like, hold on, let me listen to this. One more podcast to learn how to make another $1 million so I can live that life that I dream about. Brother, it hit me. I don't know what it was. I was like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yep.
You're sitting here on the beach in Hawaii, living the dream, and you're living this life of abundance. Now, why are you still chasing after all this money? It's not about the money. It's about the lifestyle. It's about what you're living. And I put the headset down, went and played with my kid. And from the moment that I made that realization that I was living this life of abundance, so much more started coming into my life because I started being grateful for what I already had. And I can get emotional about this because it's very serious to me. I even got in contact with a guy who, in a couple of weeks after that, a guy who was talking about teaching me how, I went to this little, buddy called me up and said, hey, I want to go check out this little event that's going on. There was literally 20 people in there. One of the main cast members from Hawaii 5-0 was in there. Can't remember, I always forget his name, man. Anyway, the guy was like, if you were to write a book about your life, or if you were to write a book today, what would the title be? And I came up with Living a Life of Abundance. And then he started helping me write this book. And I realized that it was like a biography, and I didn't want it to be all about me. So I decided to start a podcast, long story short, because I wanted to build an audience to be able to talk to amazing guys that are living a life of abundance. Jay Papasan, the co-author of The One Thing. I mean, just so many names. I can't even, bring them all out. But to get these amazing stories to put in this book, and now this book is coming to fruition finally. It's been about 2 or 3 years. It was only supposed to be like a year. Yeah, that's, really in a nutshell of my story and so much more. You know how it is with us talking story.
Oh, yeah. You know, what's crazy is I think a guy told me once upon a time that you don't really start figuring out life and making money till after you're in your 40s. Mm-hmm. And I unfortunately believe that there's some truth to that. And I hate saying that because I remember the first time I heard that in my 20s, somebody said you don't figure things out until you're in your 40s. I think subconsciously that was something that always held me back. You know, I was constantly trying different things where I got in the MLM game for a while, had success there, then got burned out in that game just because of how the organizations were run. I got great success in sales. You know, I did the public speaking, all these things where I think it's all a way of trying to find yourself. Mm-hmm. You're trying to give yourself possibly hurdles and things to, if I can just get past X, mm-hmm. I will find myself. Did you kind of find that same journey, that same path along your ride?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've often heard that as well, that men find themselves, or we realize who we are, when we're 40. I'll be 50 this May, and I don't know that I still I really figured it out. But I got to give credit where credit is due. Part of that whole story, along that whole journey, my wife was the one consistently the whole time saying, "What the hell are you chasing?" And I knew what it was. I had to be the breadwinner. I wanted to have that freedom that everybody talks about.
Right.
But yeah, you just figure it out. What it is you just recently said on your last Kick-Ass Fridays something about, I'm going to lose my frame of thought here, but you were just talking about it. I was just listening to one of your
momentum. Well, today's episode was momentum.
Yeah, momentum. But you said something specifically that I was just thinking about that it'll come to me in a minute maybe. This is part of just having too much stuff going on in my head. You should see
I think that's just the life of an entrepreneur. Is we've always got 500 million things going.
Yeah, exactly. But she was always saying, you gotta. What are you chasing? What is it that you want? And that's what it was. That being the breadwinner, I just had to be the one to bring home to live the life that I wanted. I thought I equated that to making more money. And what I've realized over time, the experiences, that's what you're talking about. Experience is the best teacher.
Yes.
That's exactly what you said. And it's just the experiences. So, for instance, just recently I got in contact. There's a couple of kids out there, and I call them kids because they're much younger than I am, but they're probably late 20s. And their really appearances anyway are doing very well in the coaching niche. And what they're doing is they're helping coaches find clients. So they've been talking to me, and they've been trying to get me to get into their program and stuff. And it's a good program, don't get me wrong. It's really cool stuff. But the terminology that they're using to get me into, to talk me into basically and sell me on their program, they don't have to sell me. I already know their program's good. It's just not the right fit for me because where they want to go, what's important to them right now in their life. They're flashy. They're staying in the cool hotels, and they're doing all this other kind of stuff. And, brother, for me, success is what I'm doing right now. I rode my bike to school with my son this morning. I'm going to ride my bike after we're done with this conversation to go pick him up. I'm going to be able to walk over to the lake or drive my truck over to the lake because I got the tackle boxes, go fishing, tomorrow morning because it's too damn hot in the afternoon. My point is, my wife, just before while I was jumping on here, she came home with some groceries, and I'd jump out there, and I'm home to help her, to do this stuff. I'm home to cook with the, with the family. And this right here is success to me. Is that to say I don't want to continue improving my foxhole? Hell no. You always should be improving your foxhole, and you should always be improving your personal development. You should always be striving to earn more and to have more. But today, having more for me is having more relationships, like the relationship you and I have developed over the last couple of months, than it is to, have the next Ferrari or the stuff I wanted when I was that age. Nothing wrong with that stuff.
Right.
It's not where I'm at anymore.
And I think as I look back on, and when I was at 20 and somebody said you don't figure it out until you're in your 40s type thing, I think I was always searching. And what I think they were trying to say, now that I'm in my 40s looking backwards, is it takes a few years to realize what you have is the success, right? And it's learning to be grateful or whatever you want to throw it down as looking back and going, wow, this is why I'm doing this. The same thing. I mean, right now I'm sitting on my parents' farm in their log cabin while they're enjoying their retirement life, and that's where I podcast from. And that's just a cool, fun experience to be able to do. I mean, I love telling everybody I love coming over your podcast. When I come over in the morning, Mom cooks me breakfast. Right? I usually, go out and she'll sometimes make a sandwich, a lot of times make my own sandwich. And then when I'm done, I go out with my oldest brother who did 24 years in the Marine Corps and my dad, and we drink beer out in the, in their garage. And that's my Fridays. I just enjoy looking forward to that. But, it's taken me a lot of years to let my hair down enough to be able to say, okay, this is where I'm meant to be. This is where I'm supposed to do. So you've been through a lot of these cool experiences, and you've created this, Men of Abundance program, and you've been able to talk to some really big people. One of the great questions that I love being asked is, what have you learned? You've talked to all these great minds, all of these people have been through all these stories. What are your takeaways? What have you learned from these conversations?
One of my biggest takeaways is everybody's got issues. And I mean everybody.
Right.
One of the questions I ask on every one of my guests on my show, there's maybe been one or two that I haven't because it was a different type of episode, but it's rare. Out of 223 episodes posted thus far, I ask what is their kick in the gut moment? And this is that moment in life, and most of them say, oh, my God, which one do I choose?
Right.
They don't know if they can go business side, personal side, whatever. And there's some doozies out there, man. And everybody's got a mess. Everybody's had a mess. Some of them have turned their mess into their message, but everybody has issues, man. And nobody, not one of them, has it 100% figured out. I talked to Lee Cockrell. He's the former executive vice president of operations for Disney World Resorts. Wrote a book called Creating Magic and other books of that nature. And he's an idol of mine only because I'm a huge Disney freak. That's one of the reasons why I decided to move to Florida from Hawaii. And I just bought another book about Walt Disney for me and my son to read, my little guy to read. But of all the people I've had conversations with, everybody's got issues, man, and nobody's got it 100% figured out. They've got their little niche of the corner, their little niche and their little corner of their market. They've got that pretty much dialed in. And a lot of people will say, I want to be that guy. Perfect example. Somebody I have not had the opportunity to, and unfortunately I never will at this point, is, what is the guy's name? Now I'm going to forget his name. The guy for Anthony Bourdain. I used to always say, goodness gracious, I want that man's life, man. He gets to travel the world, drink alcohol, drink beer, and eat food, and meet the most amazing people in the world. But there's a big difference between wanting somebody else's career and wanting somebody else's life and what you see on the surface. Because What was going on behind the scenes, you don't want that.
Right.
You don't want that. And that's the things that I got to explain to people all the time. They say, well, I want to be like Grant Cardone, or I want to be like, this guy or that guy. What part, though? You got to understand what part of that do you want, because his life is his life because he's been through some shit.
Yeah. That's the key is, and I think people get hung up on that fantasy side of things, is they put people into some sort of image, right? Some sort of status. What they don't realize, and you just said it, is what the hell that person's been through, right? What's that journey that they've gone through to get where they're at?
Yeah. And,
some of those guys, if you know their full story, wasn't the most ethical journey. For them to get where they're at. Some of those guys had a very ethical journey and they had some great successes, but it goes back to, before you can get anywhere, you got to know who the hell you are. And you got to be willing to go through the journey. You got to be willing to take it on and go for it and live and choose your own adventure, which is hard for people to do.
Well, one of the things that I do with a lot of guys when I have conversations with them is everybody will ask, what do you want in life? And they'll sit down and blah, blah, blah. They'll meander around about it, and some of them really don't know. But if I ask them, what do you not want in your life that's in your life right now? What do you not want? I'll give you 1 minute to write it down. And they'll use up that entire minute. They know exactly what they don't want.
They're going to list it all out, right? Yep.
Yeah, they know exactly what they don't want. And maybe the list of what you do want is short. But the problem is too many people are, and we're getting into a lot of mindset stuff here, man. We're getting deep now, brother.
Let's go. We'll have some fun anyway.
It's just like I had a conversation with a guy who was a master kayaker, I guess you could call him. He used to take guys out, not kayaker, but whitewater rafter. And when they're whitewater rafting, one of the things he has to continuously tell the people in the boat is don't look at the rock. That's the rock we don't want to hit. Don't look at that rock. Do not look at the rock. Look at where we want to go. Because if you look at the rock every time, you're going to hit the rock. Perfect example, when you put a kid on a bike for the first time, what do they hit?
Mailbox. In
the middle of the field. It's
right.
in the middle of a damn field. And they hit that pole. Why? Because they're looking right at it. And the mom said, or the dad said, don't fall down, don't hit that pole.
Right. Right.
You got to refocus, and you got to pay attention to what you do want to refocus, and don't stop thinking about the things you don't want.
Yeah, here's an interesting trick for your marriage that works for my wife and I very well is I quit asking my wife what she wants for dinner because the response was all the time, I have no idea. What do you want? So I started asking, okay, what don't you want for dinner? And it's amazing how quick we can get to a dinner decision when you ask that question. Yeah. And it works the same way in life. But it's so true. I mean, because to prove it, if you're driving down the road and you turn to look at something, inevitably your car is going to lean in that direction, right? Mm-hmm. So I hadn't heard it put in the kayaking side of things, but that's
and then you put that into perspective. You say, well, okay, I want to lose 10 pounds this month. Okay, quit thinking about what you want to lose. Quit thinking about what you want to get rid of. I want to be healthy. I want to start the process of being healthy this month. One of the things that talking about, that's kind of getting into affirmations, and one of the things I can't stand about affirmations is people start saying, tell yourself, I got $200,000 in the bank. I have $200,000 in the bank. I have 200. No, you don't, and you know you don't, and you know you're lying to your damn self.
100%.
Change those affirmations to something of the nature of, what is it going to take? You got to backwards engineer this and say, what is it going to take for me to have $200,000 in the bank in a reasonable time? And backwards plan that, and then start thinking to yourself, I'm going to pick up the phone and I'm going to call 10 people today to pitch my product, or I'm going to have 7 conversations with amazing men and women today on my podcast because I want to have 1 million downloads.
Yeah.
I have $1 million. No, you don't. And you know you don't, and you're lying to yourself. But you can have the affirmations of things that you are going to do that are going to get you to wherever it is you want to go. Lose weight, make money, educate.
I love that thought process because one of the things that I get in fights with gurus over is I tell people to quit setting goals. Stop goal setting. And here's why. As soon as you set a goal, it's just like what you said, that you say you want to set that goal, you want to be a millionaire. It's the same thing. You know you're not. You know, and it's so unbelievable that you start self-sabotaging before you even go. So what I challenge everybody to do is start setting milestones. And I learned this from my sales career. Let's say you average $10,000 a month, right? $120,000 a year. It is a very big leap to go from $120,000 a year to $1 million a year. It's just a huge leap. But it's not so much of a leap to go to $11,000 a month, right? And you immediately added $12,000 to that bottom line. So I tell people, set milestones. Get to that milestone, then go for the next one. Go for the next one. Incremental growth will help you get faster to where you want to go than taking these giant, leaps that you can't handle. And I'm just not a fan of affirmations because, to your point, people just get them wrong. Mm-hmm. How long did it take you to figure that out?
Oh, Lord. Several books. Several books. One I already mentioned. The One Thing, written by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. The Slight Edge is another great book, exactly what you're talking about. Multiple books I can show you over here. Slaps Upside the Head. The thing about goal setting, it's kind of like business planning. If you want to put it into that kind of that arena, is you're not going to get somewhere unless you know where you want to go. But the problem with the goal setting, to your point, is who is it? I think it's Tony Robbins that says people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 5 years.
Right. It
just takes time to get there, but you have to take the whole, how do you eat an elephant type of thing, one bite at a time. But you can't look at the big picture because it doesn't seem realistic to you. If you're only at that $72,000 a year, $1 million is ridiculous. That's like, no, it's not. It doesn't even calculate in your brain. But $100,000 does.
Right.
That's six figures. $200,000 seems even more reasonable. $500,000 is a reach.
Right.
Losing weight. You're not gonna. If you lose 10 pounds in a week, you're probably doing crack. Right? It's not healthy. In case you didn't know. But
I always wondered because that was going to be a diet plan for myself. I'm just going to go do a freaking 8-ball of crack and see how much weight I can lose.
Trust me, I've done that. It's not worth it, bro.
I've done a lot of the other ones, but not that one, no. I mean, as you continue on your journey, you're blessing a lot of lives by being able to share these stories. And, when somebody can dumb down the philosophy of the gurus, and that's what I call it, because a lot of these gurus out there, they get put on such a stage, guys like Tony Robbins, Gary Vee, guys like Grant Cardone, all those guys, they get put on some sort of stage where I think they're at times more idolized than they are listened to.
Yeah.
So I love it when us average Joes can, be part of telling everybody else's stories so it can be put out there. Is that really what Men of Abundance is all about, is hearing the everyday stories so you can touch lives? I mean... Very
much so. Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I say in regard to that is when you're looking for a mentor or somebody to follow, you need to follow somebody and have somebody mentor you who's a little bit closer to where you are today. And that goes with many different industries, many different areas. I did a video long while back from the beaches in Hawaii, and it was titled "Stop Following Gary Vee Today." And it was kind of a play on words. And what I meant by that is, if you're going to follow Gary Vee, don't follow who he is today because you're not even close to that. I pretty much guarantee it. Everybody that I'm talking to right now, pretty much. Follow him from when he was back going to yard sales and getting trinkets and toys and reselling them on eBay.
Right.
When he was doing, TV for his dad's shop, not making any money for 2-3 years, not making a dime, doing all those YouTube videos. Follow him back then when he was so raw and clumsy and looked like, like he says, like a refugee. I mean, it was, follow him back, go back then. And follow him, because today he is who he is, and he lives the lifestyle that he lives because of all of that. So you got to go back there. So you got to connect with people, and that's the whole thing about Men of Abundance. Some of them are way further ahead than where I was at when I started, but I'm much closer to where they are now because of what I've learned and having conversations with all these men. I've grown so much just from having these conversations with all these men and women. I've had conversations with women as well, both for the podcast and off. I mean, I'm blessed to have conversations, people contacting me that want to have conversations just to have a conversation. Now I'm at the point to where I'm like, okay, well, what's the nature of our conversation?
Right.
Like just get on the phone or Zoom or Skype or anybody. I'm definitely not going to meet somebody at a coffee shop, take time away from my family and from what I'm doing just because.
Right.
I kind of have to know what's going on there.
Well, and just humor me is how many emails do you get a day or a week of somebody saying, hey, I wrote a book and I'd love to sell it on your show. Yeah, no, that's not how this works.
Yeah. I get that, and I get a lot of agencies. I've been working, there's about 5 or 6 agencies that, they send me guests. And there's one that I've been working with since day one because I've interviewed one of the co-founders twice. He's the only person that's been interviewed on my show twice, Aaron Walker, and Tom Schwab, the other founder of that business. And they know exactly who I am. I mean, I talked to Tom's wife.
Right.
As a matter of fact, Tom just sent me a postcard. He was just here in Orlando. Those people know exactly who I'm looking for. And there's some others that come up and they're like, hey, this guy wants to be on your show, or they're just looking for shows for them to be on. But they've obviously never listened to a damn episode.
Right. Yep.
And it's like, this person's not a fit for my show, man. And then they ask, or even if they contact me personally and say, I've had this one. Well, I'm not going to get into that one because that's a big profile person potentially. So, but I get contacted through LinkedIn, through Facebook, through email, and Some of them, quite frankly, have a political agenda because I vet them. I go into their LinkedIn, I go into their Facebook, I check them out. And I'm like,
you have to.
No, yeah, you're just not the abundant leader that I'm looking for.
Yeah, I got a gentleman the other day, and of course, I want to get close to using his name, but he sent me a message that said, hey, I'd love to be on your show. Here's my website. Right? And usually that's a huge indicator for me that this person is just looking for some sort of exposure. Has no idea what my show is about. Mm-hmm. But I did, out of courtesy, I went and looked at his website. And I'm glad I did, because there was no way in hell I'd ever put this guy on my show. One, I didn't like the vibe he put off, but then you go look at his website and you're like, oh, yeah, nope, just not a fit for my show. And so I replied kindly. I said, it's not going to be that easy to get on a show like this. Tell me your story, and silence. No response, no anything else. It's always amazing to me. What's probably been the most surprising guest you've had on your show? I mean, what? Because I've even got a couple that I've had on. I'm like, when they tell their story, you're like, wow. What have been some of those surprises, some of those ahas with your show that have happened?
Man, I'll tell you what. One of the people that was on my list for a long time was, I already mentioned, Lee Cockrell. And he was introduced to me. This is the whole thing about the 6 degrees of separation, or whatever you want to call it. I was talking with, goodness, now I'm going to be embarrassed because I'm going to forget his name. But he owns the Savannah Bananas. Oh, my Lord. Anyway, after the pre-show, after the show, he's like, well, who can I introduce you to? And I was like, I don't know. I got a few people on my list. He goes, start naming them down. And I said, Lee. He goes, I know Lee personally. It's done. He sent Lee an email. 2 minutes later, literally, Lee returns the email and says, yeah, I've checked it out. Listening to the show right now. I'm in. So that was a surprise. I was like, what, really? Right. But the only double show I have, it's a part 1 and part 2, was with Deuce Pesic. And Deuce Pesic is make sure I get it right, Siberian immigrant. Thanks, Siberian. I'm going to look that one up because I'm going to have to look that one up. But anyway, he's an immigrant. He's an engineer. He is an amazing, amazing dude. And he's working on some huge stuff right now with some big names. I'm not going to mention it here because he's told me in privacy. He has put it on his social media, but I'm not going to mention it here. But this cat, he went on for almost 2 hours.
Wow.
And I was like on the edge of my seat. I was like, this cat is, I forget how we got connected. It might have been something on Facebook or something like that. But, man, him and I have been talking ever since then. We've I wouldn't go as far as saying we're close friends, but, we know each other well. Right. Let's put it that way, because we bounce this stuff off of each other all the time. He supports me 100%. I support him. And for the longest time, his episode was the most downloaded episode. And he was, in the world of influencers, nobody.
Right.
Nobody knew who he was, and I was just blown away by that.
Yeah, I've got one of those as well, a very similar guy by the name of Anthony White, and I'll absolutely make this introduction because he's the most downloaded episode of my show. But Anthony was a guy that, he's still in the Navy, and I wasn't prepared for his story, but he was homeless prior to going in the Navy, and his journey about how the Navy saved him, his story. It's just an awesome thing to be a part of. But when you're doing those shows and you get those guys that are just sharing your story, isn't it cool when their story is so impactful that you're like, I don't even want to interrupt this. I just want to let that flow go all the way through it. It's really, really fun.
Yeah, it's happened a couple times.
Yeah. So what are you doing with Men of Abundance? Podcast is seeing a lot of success. You're doing a lot of cool things with it. Where's this all taking you?
So where it's taken me was completely unexpected. A lot of people have a business and then they start a podcast to promote the business or product or whatever the case may be, or whatever their message is. I didn't have a message. I had the purpose, as I said earlier, for me starting my podcast was to collect stories so that I could have stories to put in this book, Living Your Life of Abundance, to show people that you don't have to be all these big names and stuff like that. And even if you are one of these big names, you got to understand they started from where you are as well. Right? And they have issues and they have kick in the gut moments. And about 6-8 months in, one guy contacted me and said, hey, do you coach in Living a Life of Abundance? I dig your lifestyle at the time. Well, I was still working, but I was kayaking back and forth to work across the Pearl Harbor, biking from my house to the harbor, kayaking across to Hickam Air Force Base, then driving my truck up to work. And, just loving life, And so I said, you know what? Then another guy contacted me. Then a spouse contacted me and said, hey, I've been listening to your show. About 40% of the listeners, 48% are women. Well, that's what visits my website anyway. And she's like, I've been listening to your show. I'd love for you to coach my husband in living a life of abundance. And I'm like, all right, there's something out there. I need to look at this because I listen to people like Pat Flynn, John Lee Dumas. When people start asking you for stuff, you need to build that. So I had to figure out how to build that because I didn't know how to coach in living a life of abundance. And as a soldier, as an Army NCO, I've coached and mentored many soldiers throughout life, and I've coached fitness and stuff like that, but nothing to this magnitude. So I started hiring coaches, and I started working with other coaches to learn how to build a coaching business. That evolved into now what I do is my business is Abundance and Prosperity Mastery, where I've combined my skills as a business strategist and marketing strategist with abundance mindset. Because what I'm doing and working with business owners is I've found that, and this is even from the past, and I've known this from all the books I've read and everything else, is to be successful at just about anything, it's 90% mindset.
Right.
It's where you're coming from and where you see yourself going. And the rest of it is just skills, techniques, strategies, all that kind of stuff that I can show anybody how to do. But I can show you and I can show the next guy the same exact strategies, and you have the same resources, and you will progress faster and see success faster than the other guy based off of your mindset. That's the limiting factor, is yourself, is your mindset. So what I've done is I've combined that and created this Abundance and Prosperity Mastery. I do one-on-one group training, and then I have like a DIY e-learning platform that guys can go into, business owners can use, but just tons and tons of marketing, done for you type marketing, or you just take it and tweak it a little bit for hundreds of different industries.
And here's what I love about that, dude. One, good on you, and congrats on being able to kind of backdoor your way into a business, which is awesome.
Mistake, brother. I stumbled upon it. It just evolved, man. I did not find that.
But what I love about it is how you got the business side of it going when you said you went out and got a coach. I'm amazed how many coaches I have met that don't have a coach. I'm like, if you don't have a coach, you don't believe in coaching.
That's like saying, I'm a doctor, and you need to listen to what I'm saying. I don't go to doctors myself.
Right.
Because I don't believe in it, but you need to listen to me.
Right. And it blows me away that people can have that goal. And so what I tell people is typically somebody who's a coach is somebody who's just unemployable, right? Nobody wants to hire them because they're going to tell you how to run your own business, right? So I love the fact that your journey, your story is you started off with, so I went and got coaches so I could figure out how to run a coaching business. There's just a lot to that, and I love that you now take those skills and assets and you're working with individuals to help them go find abundance in your life. And I'm 100% in with you. That's 90% of the battle is all between your ears. I mean, when I taught sales training, I told everybody, you win or lose a deal before you walk through the door.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, when I kind of hesitate sometimes in referring, even though my website is apmasterycoach.com, business owners aren't looking for a coach. And quite frankly, what business owners are looking for, is not really what they need. They think they need more leads and more conversions. So that's what I sell. That's the way I present it.
Right.
But when I get in there and I start talking to them and I start actually working with them, what I do is business strategies, because marketing is going to get them a return on investment months down the road, maybe even years down the road, because it takes a while with all the touch points, anywhere from 100, it's up to 100 touch points at this point. But when I go in and I change some of their strategies in their business and I look into their business and I see how they're not just themselves, but how their key staff members are communicating with each other and communicating with customers, that right there can be fixed like that. I mean, literally, it's like that. That's why I like working with small businesses, because they're not the Titanic. It doesn't take as much to turn them. I can just give them some scripts, and I can say, start saying this on the phone, because this is the marketing that we're doing now, and you need to be able to reply to that. And many other strategies that actually puts money in their business within weeks to a month or two that marketing's not going to do. Now, we do the marketing because that's going to build up later, but it's funny how some of the business owners, especially I talk to around here, they can't handle more business.
Right, right.
They got plenty of business. They need the strategies to learn how to make more money, and most of them don't get into their numbers. They never look at their numbers. They're throwing money out the window. That's all getting all the technical stuff and strategies, but the mindset is just unbelievable.
So if you were to give somebody a self-program, something they could do at home to work on their mindset, maybe an activity or a tool they could use to work on their own mindset, what would you tell them to use? Or what would you say, try this?
Well, I've got some of that stuff that's actually in my e-learning platform. They get it. It's 52 weeks, and some of it's strategy, some of it's mindset. And every week they get a video, and then they get a video, and they also get the workbook, and they get another training. So they basically get 3 emails a week. Seems like a lot, but it's building on and on. But aside of that, number one, it's simple but not easy. Realize what you have today and be grateful for what you have today. It's not even a habit anymore. It's who I am. When I wake up in the morning, as soon as my eyeballs open up, the first thing I'm thinking about is what I'm grateful for today. It might be that my eyeballs opened up. It might be the clean sheets that I'm sleeping in. It might be somebody's name will pop into my head. Somebody will come to mind, and I got to call that guy today, and I will. I'll either call the person, I'll send them a message somehow, I'll communicate with them and say, look, I appreciate you in my life. What can I do for you today? Some of that nature. You just got to be grateful and actively grateful for what you have today. And I know that's not as easy for some people because you're looking around you and you're seeing this mess, but I know you've heard it before, and it's kind of cliche, and you might not want to hear it again, but the fact of the matter is somebody has it worse than you do. And if you're listening to this right now or you're watching this, be grateful. Because even though my podcast, and I'm sure yours is as well, I think 63 different countries, places that are communist. I mean, I got people listening to my show in China somehow, according to... You
might have me on that one. I don't know if I have China. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. It's just crazy. But... just be grateful. And that's number one. And I know it's not as easy, and I keep harping on that, but it's just huge. It really is.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So we're getting close to it, but how do people find your podcast? How do they find out more about Men of Abundance? How do they reach out and get in touch with you?
Everything's at menofabundance.com. Everything. All my social media stuff is up there. I'm on damn near everything. I got a presence anywhere. I'm not active on everything, but I'm there. I got an account for it. And then in there as well, on the AP Mastery, it's just AP Mastery tab. That's where all the business, I have the business stuff in there. It's also apmasterycoach.com, but you can just go to the menofabundance.com. Everything's there just to make it easy.
Beautiful. And we'll put all that in the show notes, guys, to make sure you guys can scroll down and get all this stuff. Dude, Wally, I got to tell you, this has been a lot of fun. I really enjoyed having you on here to come on and share your story. We've been working on this for a while, so... Yeah. Here's how I like to wrap up everything, and I do stump some people with this, so be forewarned. But if you were going to leave my audience with a quote, a saying, a phrase, a mantra, something that they can carry with them as they're going on their journey, maybe in particular when they're stacked up against it and trying to go through it, what would be that thing you said, hey, when you're going through it, remember this?
We live in the safest time in the history of the world, period. I say that because regardless of all the shit that you watch, and if you're a avid news watcher, I implore you, cut that shit out.
Turn it off.
Turn it off. Because it will lead you to believe, and Facebook does the same thing, and people get beat up for posting their good news stories, or they're giving something to somebody, they get beat up because you shouldn't be sharing that kind of shit. You should just give and not share bullshit. I prefer watching that stuff than two girls fighting at a freaking McDonald's. Right? We live in the safest time ever. And yes, there's racism going on. There's discrimination going on all the time. My last episode that just posted was Get Over Your Bias. All right, great episode. That was episode 223. But shut that shit off and go outside and see what's really going on. Talk to the people in your neighborhood. Get out and be a part of your community. Don't sit behind your computer or sit behind your phone and watch all this crap because they're feeding you. I don't know why. I don't know what the agenda is. I don't know left, right. I don't care about none of that crap. All I'm telling you is that somebody's got an agenda that they're trying to separate us as people. My best friend in the whole world is an Army medic, fellow Army medic as well. He's black. I only bring that up because he and I, we collaborate and we talk a lot, and I don't understand everything that he's gone through. He doesn't understand everything I go through, but we bounce things off of each other all the time. And sometimes we leave each other pissed off, and most of the time we leave each other with a better understanding. And you can do that with anybody. So, look, just understand that. We live in the safest time ever. Just look at data. And one last thing I'll leave you guys with, Donnie, is when I started this whole journey, I won't get up, but I got the book over here. It's called Abundance by Peter Diamandis. And if you have any question that there is a huge amount of abundance in resources, education, you name it, it's in that book. And he put data in that book that proves what people have gone out and done. I could tell you multiple stories. I just implore you to get that book. I suggest getting it on audio first. That's what I did because there's a lot of data in there, and I can't read a whole lot of data without falling asleep.
Right.
It really interests me. So I listen to the audio book, and I do this often with books anyway. I'll get the audio book. If it's something I want to go through and have as a guide, then I'll buy the hard copy. And great book, Abundance by Peter Diamandis. And if you don't believe what I'm saying, get that book, and you'll definitely see that we live in safer times. And there's so much in the world. The scarcity mindset keeps so many people down. It sickens me.
So that's awesome, brother. And it's the absolute truth. I'm so glad you said the thing about the media because the news, newspaper, all that stuff's not allowed in my household. It's so funny is around my family and friends, if they have the news on when they walk in, they turn the channel. Just because they know I'm going to say turn it off, and it's nothing about agendas. Studies will show that it takes 15 to 22 negative stories before they get anything positive. I don't want that negative stuff in my life, and I don't care what they're talking about. And people are like, how do you get your information? I'm like, if it's important enough, you hear about it. Right?
It comes, man.
Yeah,
it comes.
So, Wally, thanks so much for coming on the show, brother. It's been a lot of fun, man. I've been looking forward to this one. So thanks for sharing your journey with us.
My pleasure, man. It truly is.
You know what, guys? Really, thank you for listening to this episode. I really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun putting these together. I wanted to make sure before we get out of here that you knew what we were doing with social content. What we found was because of the podcast, we have a unique way of helping you get your social content out on a very easy way. What we're doing is we're interviewing people, and from that interview, we will capture a lot of information that will then be turned into videos, memes, articles, all things you can use for your social content. I know, like for me, one of the biggest struggles I had was, what do I put out there? What do I say on a regular basis? Well, we'll help do all that for you. So if this is at all of interest to you, reach out to us and let us help you grow your social media channel. I can tell you I did this for my business, and my social media is completely taking off. My Instagram, since I started doing this, jumped to over 10,000 followers, and it continues to grow. So if this is at all of interest to you, check the bottom of the show notes for the link that says, Get My Social Content Done right now.